to shadowed highway. I never liked driving at night. The darkness seemed to swallow everything, and the only company I had was the eerie glow of my headlights slicing through the blackness. But tonight, I had no choice. I had to make it home before dawn, no matter how much the empty road ahead filled me with dread. As I cruised down the desolate highway, my hands clenched the steering wheel tightly. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of static from the radio. I tried to focus on the road ahead, but my mind kept drifting to the stories I had heard of accidents and disappearances on these lonely stretches of asphalt. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the distance, standing at the side of the road. My heart pounded as I approached, and I could feel a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. I slowed down, not sure if I should stop or keep going, but as I got closer, I realized it was just a hitchhiker, their silhouette barely visible in the dim light. Against my better judgment, I pulled over. The figure approached my car slowly, and as they drew near, I could see that they were wearing a tattered coat that hung loosely around their frame. Their face was hidden in the shadows of a hood pulled low over their eyes. "Need a ride?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The hitchhiker nodded silently and climbed into the passenger seat without a word. I could feel their eyes on me, studying me in the darkness. I tried to ignore the feeling of unease creeping up my spine as I pulled back onto the road. We drove in silence for what felt like an eternity, the only sound the rhythmic thud of my heartbeat echoing in the confines of the car. I stole glances at the hitchhiker beside me, but they remained silent and still, like a statue carved from the night itself. Suddenly, a dense fog rolled in, swallowing the road ahead in a thick white haze. I squinted through the windshield, trying to make out the path ahead, but it was impossible to see more than a few feet in front of me. Panic began to rise in my chest as I realized I had no idea where I was or which direction to. "Where are we?" I asked, my voice trembling with fear. No response came from the hitchhiker. I turned to look at them, but they were gone, vanished into thin air as if they had never been there at all. I blinked in disbelief, my heart pounding in my chest as I struggled to comprehend what was happening. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the middle of the road, illuminated by the glow of my headlights. It was the hitchhiker, but something was different. Their eyes gleamed with a malevolent light, and their mouth twisted into a sinister grin that sent shivers down my spine. I slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The figure disappeared into the fog, and I felt a sickening thud as my car collided with something solid. The world spun around me, and everything went black. When I regained consciousness, I found myself lying on the cold asphalt, my head throbbing with pain. I groaned and pushed myself to my feet, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My car was nowhere to be seen, swallowed by the thick fog that still hung in the air like a shroud. I stumbled forward, desperate to find some sign of civilization in this desolate landscape. But no matter which direction I walked, the road stretched on endlessly, leading me deeper into the heart of darkness. Hours passed, but it felt like an eternity as I wandered aimlessly through the fog. I began to hear strange noises in the distance, whispers that seemed to echo all around me, filling me with a sense of dread unlike anything I'd ever felt before. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, I saw a faint light flickering in the distance. Hope surged within me as I stumbled toward it, my legs aching with every step. But as I drew closer, I realized it was not a beacon of salvation, but something far more sinister. It was a house, old and decrepit, its windows shattered and its walls covered in ivy that seemed to writhe and twist in the darkness. I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to turn back, but something compelled me forward, drawing me inexorably toward the looming structure. As I stepped inside, the air grew thick with the stench of decay, and I gagged as I stumbled through the dimly lit hallway. Shadows danced on the walls, their movements erratic and unnatural, and I could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching. I found myself in a room at the end of the hall, its door hanging off its hinges as if inviting me inside. With a sense of dread gnawing at my insides, I pushed it open and stepped into the room beyond. What I saw inside will haunt me until the end of my days. The walls were lined with shelves upon shelves of jars, each one filled with a grotesque assortment of organs and body parts. In the center of the room stood a table, upon which lay a figure covered in a tattered cloak, its face obscured by shadows. As I approached, the figure stirred, and the cloak fell away to reveal the face of the hitchhiker. But it was no longer human. Its skin was pallid and stretched tight across its bones, and its eyes burned with a malevolent light that froze me to the core. "You shouldn't have stopped," it hissed, its voice a chilling whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "Now you belong to me." With a sudden burst of movement, it lunged toward me, its fingers outstretched like claws. I screamed and stumbled backward, but there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide from the horrors that lurked in the dark. And as its icy fingers closed around my throat, dragging me into the depths of despair, I knew that I would never escape the nightmare that had consumed me on that fateful night.